You're watching robots fold laundry, prepare breakfast, and perform surgery at the world's biggest tech show. And the strange part is that none of this feels like a demo anymore. CES 2026 just wrapped in Las Vegas, and what showed up on those convention floors marks a genuine inflection point in physical AI. This is about potential trends, not financial advice. But what we saw this year could reshape entire industries. Here's the thing. For years, humanoid robots at tech conferences felt like expensive theater. Carefully choreographed movements, tightly controlled environments, demos that worked perfectly until the cameras stopped rolling. That pattern broke this January. Companies didn't just show what robots might do someday. They announced deployment timelines, commercial partnerships, and factory locations. If you've been skeptical about robotics hype, that skepticism has been reasonable. But the pieces that were missing, the reasoning, the adaptability, the ability to operate in messy human environments, those gaps are closing faster than most people expected. Understanding why matters if you work in manufacturing, healthcare, logistics, or even just own a home. The shift started with something Nvidia calls physical AI. Jensen Huang used that phrase repeatedly during his keynote at the Fontainebleau, standing beneath massive screens that showed robots navigating construction sites and surgical suites. The core idea sounds simple but represents a fundamental change. Machines that don't just follow pre-programmed instructions, but actually understand the physical world they inhabit. Think of it like the difference between a GPS that recites directions and a passenger who can look out the window and say, "Wait, that road is flooded. Let's take another route." Nvidia's Cosmos platform, which has already been downloaded millions of times, trains AI models using synthetic data generated from simulations grounded in real physics. A robot can practice millions of scenarios inside a computer before touching anything in the real world. This solves an enormous bottleneck. Training robots used to require painstaking real-world data collection. You had to put physical machines through thousands of repetitions, risking damage, burning time, hiring operators. Now, a simulated environment teaches the same lessons in a fraction of the time. Huang called this moment a ChatGPT moment for physical AI, when machines begin to understand, reason, and act in their surroundings. The most dramatic example was Alpamayo, Nvidia's new AI system for autonomous vehicles. Unlike traditional self-driving software that recognizes objects and plans basic routes, Alpamayo thinks about unusual scenarios and adapts. More importantly, it can explain what it's doing and why. That paper trail matters for engineers debugging problems and for regulators evaluating safety. Mercedes-Benz announced that the new CLA will ship with this technology later this year, making reasoning-based driving assistance available to ordinary consumers. If you're curious, public documentation from Nvidia's developer program shows how these world foundation models actually work. The technical papers are surprisingly readable. But the biggest headlines came from humanoid robots stepping off the concept stage and onto real factory floors. Boston Dynamics formally introduced the production version of Atlas. It's electric humanoid that features 56 degrees of freedom and joints that rotate in ways human bodies simply cannot. During the keynote, Atlas autonomously stood up from a flat position, using an almost unsettling joint-flipping maneuver that demonstrated capabilities beyond human anatomy. The company also announced a partnership with Google DeepMind to integrate Gemini Robotics AI, enabling Atlas to reason through complex instructions in unstructured environments. The first commercial units will deploy at Hyundai's Meta plant in Georgia this year. That's not a demo, that's a payroll. Meanwhile, Chinese robotics firms showcased their full humanoid lineups. Unitree demonstrated the G1 performing high-speed martial arts movements, emphasizing agility and motor control at price points designed for mass production. The company confirmed a robot-as-a-service business model, which means factories won't necessarily buy these machines outright. They'll subscribe. AMD revealed Gene 01 from Generative Bionics, a humanoid scheduled for deployment in industrial environments like shipyards before the year ends. These robots are trained using AMD's cloud-based processing, with models customized for specific tasks. What this means in practice is that robotics is becoming software-defined. The same physical hardware can learn different jobs, adapt to different environments, and improve through updates rather than hardware replacements. McKinsey estimates that the general-purpose robotics market could reach $370 billion by 2040. with logistics, light manufacturing, retail, agriculture, and healthcare leading adoption. That sounds distant, but the building blocks arrived in Las Vegas this month. Now here's where it gets personal. LG unveiled Humanoid, a humanoid home robot designed to make housework, in their words, a thing of the past. The robot has 2 articulated arms with 7 degrees of freedom each, 5 independently controlled fingers per hand, and a wheeled base that borrows from the company's robot vacuum technology. At CES, Humanoid demonstrated retrieving milk from a refrigerator, placing a croissant in an oven, starting laundry cycles, and folding garments after drying. The robot connects to LG's thin ecosystem, coordinating with smart appliances throughout a home. A camera and sensor array in its head recognizes objects, understands context, and learns habitual patterns of the people it serves. LG calls this the zero-labor home, a living space where daily chores happen automatically, freeing residents to spend time on what matters. That vision raises a hard question. If robots handle cooking, cleaning, and laundry, what happens to the mental rhythms many people build around those tasks? Some find meditative value in folding clothes or preparing meals. Others would happily delegate every domestic chore permanently. The technology doesn't care which camp you belong to. It simply offers a choice that didn't exist before. LG also announced Axiom, a new line of robotic actuators designed for efficiency and scalability. This matters because actuators, the motorized joints that allow robots to move, represent one of the most expensive and difficult components to manufacture. By developing these in-house, LG positions itself to mass-produce home robots at price points that could eventually reach mainstream consumers. No release date or pricing has been announced yet, which tells you the technology still needs refinement before it lands in living rooms. SwitchBot introduced the Onero H1, a simpler approach with 2 robotic arms mounted on a rolling base. The system works within a connected ecosystem of smart devices. From locks with facial recognition to AI-powered desk lamps, these products target incremental automation rather than complete household transformation, which might actually match how most people adopt new technology, gradually rather than all at once. Let me flip the perspective here, because optimism deserves scrutiny. Impressive demos don't guarantee smooth real-world performance. Ben Wood, chief analyst at CES Insight, pointed out that despite the excitement, commercial implementation of humanoid robots remains years away for most applications. Factory environments are controlled. Homes are chaotic. Children, pets, unexpected obstacles, uneven floors, the complexity multiplies. There's also the labor question. When robots fold clothes at factories and potentially in homes, what happens to the jobs those tasks currently support? The technology creates new roles in robot maintenance, programming, and supervision, but those positions require different skills than the ones they replace. That transition doesn't happen automatically or painlessly, and efficiency raises its own moral tensions. What tasks are we optimizing away, and what human connection or satisfaction might disappear alongside them? Cooking dinner can be drudgery or an act of care, depending on context. A robot that handles meal prep efficiently might free time while subtly eroding something harder to name. These questions don't have clean answers. But CES 2026 made them urgent rather than hypothetical. The gap between robot demonstrations and robot deployments is collapsing. Factories will adopt these systems first, followed by healthcare facilities and warehouses. Home adoption will take longer, but companies are betting billions that it will eventually arrive. The practical takeaway is this. Physical AI changes which skills hold value over the next decade. Understanding how these systems work, maintaining and operating them, designing the environments where they succeed, those capabilities matter more each year. Whether you embrace the technology or approach it skeptically, ignoring it stops being an option. What do you think? Are home robots solving real problems or creating new ones? Drop your perspective in the comments. If you want to stay informed as this space evolves, consider subscribing. And check out the video on screen, which goes deeper on how AI is reshaping specific career paths right now.